Okay, let's dive into the next lesson here. I'm going to move my screen just a little bit around because I want to make sure that we get all the goodness here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so let's dive into it. The psychology of the subconscious. This is going to be so important for not only attraction and the law of attraction and accomplishing our goals and our dreams, but it's going to be very important in polarity, breaking habits, and just overall something that you should really know if you are trying to become better as a person is your subconscious. So I always tell my clients this bold statement that I've written out for us. Our subconscious is our best friend. And the moment you start to realize that, I'm going to draw a happy person here. You start to realize that your subconscious is your best friend. They're holding their brain and they're all enlightened. So I'm going to give some enlightened streaks here. They're going to be happy because it's a BFF, right? The moment you find out that your subconscious is your best friend is the moment that your life really starts to change. A lot of us go through life feeling afraid or fearful. So I'm going to put fear. And because of that, they feel like they don't have any control. And they also just feel like they're living in the moment day to day and they can't accomplish their goals. So subconscious is really doing a few critical things from us and making sure that we are not only achieving our goals, but ultimately that we're surviving. And that gets kind of brought up right here towards the bottom. Survive. That's the one role that the subconscious wants to make sure that we do. Now, we also affiliate fear to survival, but surviving is more than just fear, right? Surviving is also making sure that we get food. I'm trying to think of what I could make, maybe an apple for my food. So making sure we get water. So I'm going to put H2O, the inner scientist in me, it's coming out. And then also just happy experiences. So another smiley face. So the BFF just wants us to survive, just wants us to make sure that we're getting to that next day, that next step. And a big difference I want to bring up before we go any further is that the subconscious is different from our unconscious. So I'm just going to put over here. And I'm just going to put a line through that because it is different from our unconscious. Our unconscious is having these automatic reactions that we have nothing to do with. These are the processes that we cannot analyze. It is so far down into the id, if you want to ask Freud, that we just can't access that. But the subconscious is something we can interact with. We just can't interact in the same type of way that we do with our normal best friend. So you can't really call them up and be like, hey, look out for that bear, or hey, this is making me feel anxiety or pain or XYZ. It has to be communicated in a whole different way. Now, going back to the reason it's going to be important for our subconscious to be our best friend is our subconscious is really running the show. So I'm going to put a stage, maybe a guy over here speaking at a podium, and he has a projector right behind him, and he's running the show. Fantastic. Awesome. And running the show is a lot of work. So we have to give a lot of credit to our subconscious because it's processing so much information on a day-to-day basis that we do not even think of. So just imagine going down a street and trying to process all of the information as you are in between, let's say, Manhattan skyscrapers or Miami skyscrapers, and there's loud noises, there's lights, there's people talking, there's cars going by. Your subconscious is running the show because it's processing all of this information, and it's basically telling your consciousness, our interaction, the thing that we think of as our inner voice, hey, you don't need to pay attention to that. Hey, pay attention to this. And it's really doing a majority of the work when it comes to our mental power. So we really want to take care of our subconscious. Again, it is our best friend. Now, here's some tricks. because we are trying to learn about attraction. We're trying to learn about how to manifest our dreams, attract our goals, break up these habits. And we have to learn that our subconscious can't talk to us on the phone like we do with our, BFF. We have to talk to our subconscious in a very different type of way. And the first thing that you need to know is that our subconscious doesn't know anything but feelings. Yes, we're talking about our feelings. Said every therapist and emotional health coach out there. Happy, sad, angry, afraid, disappointed, you name it, it's talking about feelings. Now, critical here is that the subconscious doesn't know words, and it doesn't know any language. So if you don't know words and you don't know language and you only know feelings, we can only communicate through those. I like to think of it whenever we were babies and before we knew how to talk to our parents, we knew that we could pick up on the different feelings that our parents were giving us. These would be priming us to have a reaction. So if we looked at our parents, they might have been showing what's called mirror neurons, and mirror neurons will represent the feeling of what's being projected from your parent. So if your mom was sitting down with you and trying to tell you, you did a great job, you put the blocks together, or you ate all of your food, or she's just happy because you a cute little baby, it's going to recognize those feelings in your subconscious. It doesn't know that your mom is saying good job or, you did the blocks correctly. It just knows mom looks happy. Mom feels happy. So I feel safe. Now we're getting to the nitty gritty. So feelings will either get processed as safe or not safe. And again, we can't say we're okay or we're not okay. So if you are feeling anxious, immediately it's going to say unsafe, but it doesn't know the word anxious. Okay. So as a result to these feelings, we are highly subject to nonverbal cues. Going back to the smiling, those mirror neurons that you had in your mother, the neurons that basically go from her brain to your brain to say, good job, I'm so proud of you, that's a nonverbal cue. So that's what I'm pointing out right here, nonverbal cue. This is something that we would affiliate with body language. I'm sure you've seen people cross their arms or they tilt their head if they're very curious about what you're talking about, or they give the eyebrow type of thing, or maybe give you that head nod because they're into it. These are all part of your facial expressions and your body language. Now, fun fact, when it comes to communication with other people, when you're trying to attract them, when you're trying to bring in their energy to make them do whatever you're trying to persuade them to do, you really have to pay attention to this body language, the facial expressions, and the tone of voice, which is this last part right here, tone of voice. And the reason I'm going to tell you this is because when it comes to communication, especially with somebody else's subconscious, there we go, communication, we're going to put a little phone here because you're trying to communicate with somebody. We're going to do an old-fashioned phone because this is a wire and everything, showing my age right there. And so because of that communication to their brain, only 6% of what you're communicating to somebody else comes in words. The rest of it is coming into these parts: the nonverbal cue, the body language, the facial expressions, and the tone of voice, which means only 6% is actually what you said. Everything else is how you said it. So super important whenever you're trying to attract people for your subconscious and to be able to persuade them. Now, the tone of voice especially is going to have influence because how you talk, the enunciation, the speed, the softness, the roughness is really going to bring back those feelings on if they feel safe. So think of it whenever you're trying to persuade somebody to pick up their laundry, or you're trying to convince them to go to your favorite restaurant. Well, if you talk very sweetly and you are low in your voice, you're kind, you're slow, you're going to produce a very calm sensation. Will you please pick up your laundry? Comes out very different than, will you please pick up your laundry? The tone of voice changes everything there. And even the facial expression automatically happens. So whoever you're trying to convince to pick up their laundry is going to have that subconscious alert of, unsafe versus, will you pick up your laundry? It sounds very safe. Now, I can't guarantee that they're going to pick up their laundry just yet. We have so much more to learn here, but this is going to be very critical when it comes to attraction as well as persuasion. One other thing I really want to bring up into all of this is the subconscious is very unique, because as much as we want to pretend that we are connected in this world, and we truly are on an energetic level, our subconscious, as far as our id level, doesn't register other people. It feels as if you are the only person in the entire planet, which I find fascinating, because if your subconscious believes that you're the only person in the entire planet, this means that every single time you speak, or every single time you have a reaction or an emotion to something, it may not be a person, maybe it's an animal, maybe it's a place, maybe it's an experience. It doesn't know that you're having this experience with anything else other than yourself. So, if that's the case, every single time you feel negative towards somebody else, your subconscious only registers that as feeling negative to yourself. And that will really, really put a dent in it if you know anybody that likes to gossip or has a lot of negative self-talk. I have one beautiful girl on my client list, and she has heavily been bullied throughout her high school career. And one of the best things I've been able to teach her, and that she's absolutely loved and has caused a lot of healing, is the fact that when people have told her negative things about herself, their subconscious registered it as them, which is like fascinating once again. So that was a little bit of a sidebar, but super important if you want to get into polarity work, because you have to remember every single time you are trying to convince somebody or persuade somebody or have an experience with somebody, that you're honestly just having an experience with yourself. So, fun facts, right, everyone? And as we move into the next steps of persuasion here, just really want to hit home on these three things, because these three things, if you take anything out of the video, is going to be important. The subconscious is your best friend. The subconscious is running the show. The subconscious' only job is to survive. The subconscious can only speak in feelings. And it only believes that you are the only one that exists on this entire planet. If you can wrap your head around those concepts, persuasion is going to be super simple, because you have the roadmap of what it means for your subconscious to be out there activated. Okay, so let's get into a tiny bit of attraction and a little bit of fun here. Nice. I'm going to make this a little bit smaller. Just give me some space. Wonderful. All right, so I have two more concepts to bring up for us when it comes to the subconscious. We'll put one here. So we have this concept of implicit association, which is also known as an extent of confirmation bias. Now, in psychology, these are just theories and terms that we come up with to put labels on things. And I don't always love labels. That's a whole different topic. But when it comes to this, it's just going to be very simple to say that implicit association is how your brain makes shortcuts. So let's go ahead and type that out. Let's see if we can make this bigger for us too. All about being able to read our work, right? There we go. Implicit association, we'll abbreviate for fun here, is how the subconscious makes shortcuts. Now there's this really cool study, and I might put it actually in our references just to be able to give you some science background. I always like to back things up, where they had these participants go to this lab and they were sitting at a computer and they were told to make associations on a keyboard between what was good and what was bad, and versus like what was white and what was black, and negative and positive. So they had this keyboard and they did 2 different runs of this test. And the first test, they had to click a certain button on a keyboard if what came on the screen was white and good, versus what came on the screen was black and bad, versus vice versa, black and good, white and bad. And what they found out is, depending on the speed of the test, as well as how long they had in between selections of the test, like choices, that naturally the brain, subconscious here, had what was called confirmation bias. And what ended up happening in this study as a result is the participants put together what was white faster with being good, and what was black faster with being associated with bad. And whether it was like something like the sun and night, or people, or whatever it was, this was the natural, quickest confirmation bias or shortcut that the brain made. Now, the thing with implicit association is that it can be overcome in any type of persuasion or any type of attraction. But if you do not recognize that people naturally have confirmation bias towards different things in their life, such as sun time is good and nighttime is bad, or sun means wake up and night means go to sleep, if you cannot recognize that as a basis, you cannot begin to persuade anybody to do anything. And you have to recognize that if you're going to persuade somebody against their implicit association or their confirmation bias, it's going to take longer than it would if you didn't recognize that. So that's the first part. And the second part is actually something that we can use towards ourselves, or we can use it towards others. And let's see if I can. Ooh, nice. Second part is going to be, actually, let's bring that back. There we go. I just want to do this. Wonderful. Okay, so the power of visualization. Visualization. There we go. It's something that we can use in attraction as well as persuasion for ourselves and others. So I know that you guys are in here, you guys know and have heard of manifestation, you've heard of meditation, you've heard of visualization, think what you want to see and it becomes reality, right? Well, your subconscious actually agrees with that. So your subconscious is all about helping you with that power of visualization. There we go. And I need my marker back. There we go. Perfect. So because of these shortcuts, remember the implicit association, because of these shortcuts, your brain naturally will start to make them within your mind. And this is how you can start to convince people, including yourself, of what you're trying to manifest or trying to create. If you can use those confirmation biases that you have towards your power of visualization, you'll be able to convince anybody to do anything. It just may take a little bit longer in certain situations than others. So let's get into some ideas of what this looks like overall. And we'll probably do that in our group activity. So stay tuned for that. Until then, though, let's just remember, as a quick little brief overview, that this power visualization is going to require, type it out here, get neat. Drawing arrows now. There we go. There we go. It's going to require power of visualization. Power of V, what I'm going to say. Make it a little bit larger. Incorporating our feelings, our sense of self, because remember we're alone. And finally, the fact that it just wants to survive. So remember these concepts as we work into our first activity here together about the psychology of persuasion, because these three things are going to be the key factors. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into it. And if you are listening to this on the podcast and not in the masterclass, go ahead and look up the video. That way you can really understand that in the store. And then until then, everyone else, let's go ahead and jump into the activity. All right.